really makes me think that really are at this point. It says, do you have the courage to be in the pause between what is no longer and what is not yet? And I think that's where we're living with Synergy right now, and it does take courage and vision. And so I wanted to commend all the people involved. When you get back. And then I wanted to congratulate the marching band. I know other people are going to talk about it, but we're so proud of how well they did in the new division. And all the schools had great Halloween events, and I wanted to thank the staff and the teachers and the PTAs who helped put those things together. I love the fact that the high school did something for the younger kids with the trunk and treat. That was a really nice thing to see. And I think a lot of people had a good time. And at least there's more else to the people out there who are celebrating. And that is my report. So we'll start with Mr. Sillis.
Well, I was going to say everything you said. I want to thank the community for their support for this very building and this possibility of a high school campus moving forward. And also, I was able to attend one of those Halloween school-sponsored events this year, and I wanted to thank the staff at all the elementary schools and the middle school for thinking outside the box to continue these events for these kids because they're just so important to them. So hosting them outside, I know it was a very risky one at the middle school with the weather, but it was wonderful events. All the kids that went spoke very highly about it, and it was so great to be back with our kids on school grounds. So thank you. And I'm going to leave you guys to talk about marching band.
Well, I also want to thank the community for coming out to vote and remind them to vote today. This past Sunday, I keep wanting to say yesterday, but it was Sunday, the marching band and the color guard, which I'll refer to as the band, finished in third place at the New York State Championships in Syracuse. They competed in small school Division I for the first time in a long time, and they finished in third place out of 9 bands with a Mineola record of 92.25. They previously had won back-to-back championships in 2018 and 19 in small school 2, and so now they moved up to the highest level of competition that they could. The band consisted of around 125 members, including 70 students who this was their first year. So that's 8th, 9th, and upperclassmen who decided to join. So that's 60% of the band, and they came in third place. I want to thank Mr. Toomey, Mr. St. John, and Mr. Camping, and all of the other coaches and instructors for a great season. And there are so many people behind the scenes, including Cindy Velez and Phyllis Baddinger. See, I don't forget you. And the music parents and pit volunteers. And lastly, I'd like to thank the staff who drives the equipment and students to get where they need to go for all the competitions. And without them, none of this would be possible. And there was only one Long Island school that won a championship. It was Hicksville. And funny enough, their band director is a Mineola alumni, Kerry Barnett.
That's cool. We trained her well.
Yes. And the band faced adversity from the beginning of the season with the loss of a fellow band member. And I'd like to, the whole season was do it for Gia. And I'd like to think they did it for Gia. And I was very proud of all of them. And it wouldn't be Syracuse without a problem. On the way back, I'll let Dr. Nagler discuss that if he wishes. And finally, I just want to wish my wife a happy anniversary a day early.
Good move. Good move.
Now it's on for posterity.
So my sentiments are going to echo everyone else's, so I will keep it brief. But I was a marching band parent this year, so I did get to experience everything Brian spoke about. My son is not a rookie anymore, he was told. But coming in as a newbie, I guess I was a rookie too, to watch the band, the students, the staff, the alumni, the music parents, and the pit crew, am I saying it correctly?
Mhm.
Was just amazing. I mean, the pit crew consists of volunteers and parents running and moving equipment as I sat in my seats thinking, oh my goodness, I was so nervous and I couldn't imagine them, you know. And our students performed, as somebody said, that they left it all on the field. And I said, was that good? And they said, yes, no, that's a good saying. I said, okay. But really, I mean, it honestly brought tears to my eyes seeing them in the dome, watching it. I kept watching it on the screen up above, just because I thought it was the coolest thing to see them on this big jumbotron. Like, I really did. Seeing our name light up around the whole stadium was just amazing too. But our students were so classy and professional. You know, they stayed at a hotel, you know, and there were parents there, but they roomed themselves, you know, and they went to a mall, and, you know, and they walked in and they sat there and they cheered on the Syracuse marching band and they cheered on other teams, and watching from afar, just, it really took my breath away, besides them performing and being so anxious about what they did. To see these, my son's only 13, so from 13 to 17, I mean, this was truly amazing. So all the alumni, the music parents, the staff, the teachers, I want to congratulate all the fall sports that finished up or are finishing up, and also to echo, the fall festivities were great to see again in all the schools. But I really want to thank the high school PTA for really doing that trunk or treat, which was amazing. I unfortunately didn't get to go, but I was able to see it, and it was spectacular. So, and thank you for voting last Tuesday. And that is my report.
Wow, that's great reports.
Sorry, Patrick, you're last.
No, I know. It's like all of the above. I would like to thank the Meadow Drive PTA for having me as a guest at their Parents' Night Out a few weeks ago. It was nice after a year off to be able to be in a position now where we can get together and gather. And I met some old friends, and I made some new ones. And I think, just on my wallet alone, I think they raised a wallop of cash. It looked like it was a very, very successful
At least you
evening.
won something.
I won 3 times. Yeah, I pulled off the hat trick. So yeah, it was a
I
lot
did
of
not.
it was a lot of fun, and I was glad to be there. I'd also like to thank everybody who came out to vote on an off weather day in support of, regardless of how you voted. I thank you for voting, and there's this palpable feeling that our district is literally getting better by the day, and when I think about what lies ahead for the Synergy program in the Sperry building, my brain just lights up, because it's just I just know that we're heading in the right direction, and it's very exciting. So I'm gonna leave it right there. Thank you.
I'll take the brain light up to be a growing neuron reference.
I think that would be a very good reference. Yes,
Wrap it all in a bow.
indeed.
So, again, the marching band up in Syracuse. I don't think people realize the production the marching band is in and of itself. But when we travel, it's even a bigger production. So we traveled to Syracuse with 2 box trucks and pulling a trailer, and the trailer is a substantial trailer. Unfortunately, on the way home, we had an accident on the highway, and the trailer was rear-ended, and it sent our pickup truck careening into a guardrail. So everyone's okay. We had 2 of our workers were driving a passenger in the truck. Thankfully, everyone's fine. We had some good damage to both of those vehicles. We're still trying to figure out how we're getting the trailer home, because now it is broken. I'll leave it at that. It's kind of mangled, but. So we do have a production next week. We're marching in the Veterans Day Parade, so we're hopefully don't need too many things in that trailer, but we're working on getting that home. The big deal for us, obviously, is everybody's fine. Bumps and bruises, but fine. As the marching band's culminating their season, fall sports officially ended today. Our girls volleyball team did not advance. They were in their second round this afternoon. As we know, the boys soccer and the girls soccer also made the playoffs this year, so overall we had a very good season. And I failed to mention last time, the boys soccer is very interesting. They are undefeated in the regular season 4 years in a row, and they've been conference champs 4 years in a row. It's really remarkable. I think boys soccer and girls volleyball happen to be our most consistent teams. Probably bowling right after that, where we constantly roll out year after year, highly competitive teams. I did enjoy going to the last Friday Night Lights game, where they had Hall of Fame inductions. I think was that Friday or Saturday? Friday night. I want to thank Coach Guido and Coach Massaro for kind of heading that Hall of Fame committee. And we inducted the 83 girls softball team, Bob Young and Rolly Stitchway. Rolly Stitchway and Bob Young were in the 60s, and Bob Young was a teacher here as well. Some of you said when I came he was at Hampton, but I think he was at the high school for a good time. And Rolly Stitchway is legendary for beating Roger Staubach in the Army-Navy game. So congrats to all of them. We did have the Sperry vote. Thank everybody for coming out for that. We don't own it yet. There still has to be a closing. And then after the closing, we have to file the building with the State Education Department, and there's still some paperwork and hoops to jump to before we actually get the keys and get in there. So we're doing all that work now. I would anticipate we won't see action on that building till February or March would be my best guess. You mentioned the home show. We didn't mention the home show. I want to congratulate the music parents for throwing a fantastic home show at Michael J. Tully in the 40th time we've done that. It's a massive undertaking, and co-chairs were Joanne Steele and Nicole Matza, so shout out to them, did a great job. It's their big fundraiser. Parents' Night Out, you already mentioned. The fall play is coming up, so Rumors, Neil Simon's Rumors, that's going to be in November 19th and 20th. Our next board meeting is the 18th, so I want to mention it now, so you buy tickets and get good seats. I do want to thank the middle school staff, since they're here, on a little ingenuity on how to hold a dance. We'll do it outside, pray for no rain. Ms. Chodzinowski's living a nice, clean life, because that rain started pretty much right after the dance was over. And she was, right, and she was a arcade game. Remind everybody, daylight savings is this weekend. And lastly, just want to let the board and the public know we will be opening a new section of pre-K. It's on the agenda this evening at Hampton. We had a bunch of late arrivals, and those classes got a little too big, so so that'll be the third section and the 12th section overall? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they're not all at capacity, but 12 sections is, we're back, our numbers are back to where they were 2 years ago. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any old business? Any new business? Okay, then we will move on to the rest of the agenda. Resolution 36, Secra Mineola High School roof replacement. Whereas the Board of Education of the Mineola Union Free School District desires to embark upon a capital improvement project at the Mineola High School for roofing replacement, And whereas that capital improvement project at Mineola High School is subject to classification under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and whereas replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility on the same site, including upgrading buildings to meet building or fire codes, are classified as Type 2 actions under the current Department of Environmental Conservation SECRA regulations. Now, I'm going to skip. Now therefore be it resolved. Do you want to read this one? Oh, okay. I skipped too soon. Whereas the SECRA regulations declare Type 2 actions to be actions that have no significant impact on the environment and require no further review under SECRA. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares itself lead agency in connection with the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares that the renovations and improvements to Mineola High School is a Type 2 action which requires no further review under SECRA. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby shall forward an official copy of this resolution to the New York State Education Department, together with a copy of the correspondence from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in connection with its request for approval of the listed projects from the New York State Education Department. May I have a motion?
Me.
Patrick, seconded by Cheryl. Any discussion?
So last year, if you recall, we had severe damage to the roof at the high school, the classroom, the 3-story classroom wing. Pretty much half of the west side of the roof was damaged, which isn't covered by insurance, and we had discussions that we're going to replace the whole roof, so we incurred the cost for the east side of the roof. So all of that will begin as soon as we have materials. This is a supply chain issue, so we're short on actually the insulation portion of the roof. So once we have that, we'll begin work at night, weather permitting.
Any questions or discussion? Linda, will you call the question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 36 passes. Resolution 37 is a SECRA for the Mineola Middle School Gymnasium addition and alterations. Whereas the Board of Education of the Mineola Union Free School District desires to embark upon a capital improvement project at the Mineola Middle School for gymnasium addition and alteration, and whereas said capital improvement project at Mineola Middle School is subject to classification under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and whereas replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including rehabilitation, including upgrading buildings to meet building or fire codes, unless such action meets or exceeds any of the thresholds in section 617.4 of this part, are classified as Type 2 actions under the current Department of Environmental Conservation SECRA regulations, section 6, NYCRR 617.5C2. And whereas the SECRA regulations declare Type 2 actions to be actions that have no significant impact on the environment and require no further review under SECRA, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares itself lead agency in connection with the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares that the renovations and improvements to Mineola Middle School is a Type 2 action which requires no further review under SECRA, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby shall forward an official copy of this resolution to the New York State Education Department, together with a copy of the correspondence from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in connection with its request for approval of the listed projects from the New York State Education Department. May I have a motion?
Cheryl.
Cheryl? Seconded by?
Brian?
Brian? Any discussion?
Yes, so we're excited. This is phase 1 of the middle school project. We're about to send it up to state ed. We've finished the design of the brand new gymnasium behind the current gymnasium and the eventual conversion of the current gym to a new cafeteria. So those plans, I reviewed them with the architect earlier this week. So this is one of the last pieces to send up for review.
Any questions or discussion? Linda, will you call the question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 37 passes. And now we come to Resolution 38, the consensus agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the consensus agenda items J1A1 through J4D2 as presented. May I have a motion?
I'll make it.
Stacy? May I have a second? Cheryl?
I believe there's a typo in this.
Okay.
We're going to have to amend it. The retirement of Ms. Lachlan is December 31st.
December 31st. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Brian? Okay. For the amendment. And who will second it? Cheryl? Okay. Can I just ask you, will we all approve that?
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
All right. And then we can go on with the rest. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, since there's no discussion, Linda, will you call the question?
All in favor?
Aye.
The consensus agenda of Resolution 38 passes. And that brings us to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I'm very excited this evening. We have a team of people. And it's almost a football team, not a small team. But we feel it's important we have some of our teachers, some of our administrators that are doing this work, and important for the board and the public to hear about it. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Moriarty to introduce the team on our topics of book clubs, voice and choice for kids. Yeah, it's half the audience.
I do like to roll a little deep. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Dr. Nagler and the Board of Education. We are very excited to present to you tonight and the community about how we are cultivating our learners as readers to read literature deeply. Do you mind just going to the next slide, Matt? I'll take the clicker. Thank you. To read literature deeply. And fostering joyful and independent reading for all of our learners. So we are not simply teaching reading, we are teaching the reader. And we are helping them cultivate their reader's identity. And that takes an entire team of administrators and teachers to be able to do that across the district from grades 2 through 11. So tonight we have with us Mrs. Shanahan from the middle school, Mrs. Dvorak from the high school, Elise Milberg from the high school as well, Marlene Reyes from the middle school, and Daniela Rodriguez from Jackson Avenue School to show you how we are providing a system-wide approach to book clubs for all of our learners. So the chapters of our book club journey are still unfolding. We have been working on this since the inception of the integrated curriculum. And tonight you're going to hear about the rollout of our book club initiative over the course of the last couple of years. You will hear about our vision, how we have launched and managed book clubs, how we are creating a culture of reading, how we're journeying through our texts with our peers, and our next steps, which is really being paved by the middle school at this moment in time because they are just a little bit ahead of everybody else in this process. You're going to hear a lot of the same elements come out from all of the discussions that you will hear from our staff members tonight. These are the ties that bind. They are similar because we are creating a district-wide approach that focuses on student choice, solid implementation, cultivating academic mindsets where we're asking students to explore SEL competencies as well as literacy competencies through their books, where they're connecting that to their own lives as well. We're asking students and our learners to explore the essential questions of our integrated curriculum across the grade levels, and we are in a constant state of evolution. Our reading research corroborates our vision that choice in what learners read with an array of diverse texts, how they read, and with whom they read will lead to curiosity and discovery. This curiosity and discovery will lead to an increased volume of reading. And what we know is we can't get better at something if we don't do that something. So reading a lot is the key to reading proficiency, which will then lead us to deep, deliberate practice around our reading skills and thinking about concepts and how those concepts apply to our life and how we might interact with the world around us in a different way, thereby leading to greater independence and autonomy. Because book clubs allow our children not only to have student choice in their books that they read, but also the process in which they engage in the book clubs. They run their book clubs without the intervention of a teacher, and they cultivate their identities as readers as a result. So without further ado, I would like to invite the high school to explain their segment.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. So launching and managing book clubs at the high school can be divided into 3 different phases. Starting in the 2019-2020 school year, the English department got together during the summer for a week-long institute, if you want to call it that, to redesign our units of study. We made a shift from thinking about our unit design, focusing on a book. A lot of times as a former English teacher, I used to say I'm teaching X book. We shifted, just like the K-7 integrated curriculum, to focus on concepts and themes and develop our units around essential questions. Part of that redesign inspired the focus on sparking curiosity in our students and increasing the volume of reading. So we implemented an independent reading component in every unit as well. So this looked differently from teacher to teacher. The idea was get more books in students' hands, create a culture of readers, foster a love of reading, and make sure that their text ties to the essential question. So you might have 25 students in a class and 25 different books, or in some classes, teachers who had pairs of readers, or some teachers who had book clubs happening. But this was like stepping our toes into the book club territory. And then over the course of last school year and into the summer, we started to implement and plan for book clubs, thinking about our readers and learners coming to us at the high school. So our book clubs were designed keeping our essential questions in mind and guided by our SEL competencies. At the high school last year, we spent a lot of time in our building culture committee focusing on the CASTLE framework and embedding activities in our classes around the concept of self-awareness, which is one of our SEL competencies, and we wanted to embed that in our book club practices. So our summer work this past summer included focusing on finding books, so selecting the appropriate titles to align to our essential questions. Starting with high interest titles. We want to pique students' interests, and we want them to explore their interests through their book club choices. We wanted to make sure we're providing a variety of perspectives in our text so that we cater to our diverse student body. And books that, of course, connect to the anchor text in the unit. So every unit has an anchor text that the teacher uses to model skills and help students practice those skills within their book club text. And, of course, also think about how it relates to our SEL competencies. And finally, but not only, reinforce a love of reading. I want to turn it over to Elise Milberg, our 8th and 12th grade English teacher, one of our teachers, who's going to go into more detail about what that summer work looked like and what resulted from that.
Thank you. Having come from the middle school, I knew that there was a rich component of independent and book club reading going on, so we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose step with that when the kids came to 8th grade, that they were already really in that mode of reading, so we wanted to continue that into the high school. We decided, because we have a little bit less time with the kids than they have at the middle school, that we would create a schedule for the students so that it was something they knew and could expect and follow. So Tuesdays through Thursdays, we primarily work with our students on the anchor text that we're doing in the classroom and focusing on a particular skill or topic that we know we're going to branch into our book club books with. On Mondays and Fridays, students do work with their book club books. On Fridays, they are usually, we give them some time to read with a focus on whatever that topic or skill that we have been working on all week was. Sometimes we'll do a quick mini lesson beforehand to get them ready for it, and then they'll read for that time period with that focus at hand. Then when they get together on Monday, they then meet with their book clubs with an activity that's connected to that skill, which will connect their independent reading and sometimes also the anchor text to that overall topic or skill that we were working on. And the students have really, they get into the routine, so they look forward to it, so they know when they're coming into school on Friday they're going to be reading, and they have their books ready, and there's a schedule. We create a schedule for them so that everybody's on the same page at the same time. And it's been really successful with the 8th grade, especially because during the summer we spent a lot of time making choices for good books for them so that they could really pick from a variety of books that provided high interest reading for them. And then this is just a sample of some of the writing that the students have done so far this year, connecting the literature that they're reading independently with, with themselves, with the world, and with other literature that they've read. And you can see there's a variety of lengths and topics up there. The longer ones are mostly seniors, and the shorter ones are more the 8th graders, and they're getting there. That we're working toward it and building, but you can sort of see how, you can see the growth even just through the amount that the kids are writing in their responses to their books. And you can see that these kids are really making connections to their own lives as well. So, thank you.
So, I have a question. So they're reading 2 books simultaneously, correct?
Yes.
Any issue with that? Do they forget one book or another?
They always have their books. We haven't really had any issues with the kids forgetting their books. We always have a few extras in the classroom just in case. But really, the students carry them around with them. We were just talking today that the lunch aides are saying the kids are reading in the lunchroom. The kids are reading in the hallways. We see kids reading more, and they like the books.
Has Tom Sawyer ended up in a paper about Hamlet?
Sorry?
Has Tom Sawyer ended up in a paper about Hamlet?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's where I was going.
That's what
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. I just wanted to add one last bit of anecdotal, last anecdote that, again, our teachers and staff members are sharing that they're seeing this culture of reading with students reading in places where we haven't seen them reading before, carrying around their books. And teachers today, we met today as a department, and teachers were sharing students thanking them at the end of a class period for having sustained reading time, for enjoying writing about their book. So the culture of reading and creating culture of students who love to read is definitely visible at the high school. This way? There we go. So I'm going to turn it over to our Jackson Avenue staff to continue to talk about our book club journey in our district.
Hi. So I will be talking about how we've been implementing book clubs in Jackson Avenue. I created it based on the 2 different components that we have, which is creating a culture of readers through book clubs and the journey through text with peers. So creating a culture of reading is one of our main important things. I separated it by these 4 different components, which are student choice, love for reading, learning 4th grade level text, gradual release of responsibility, and cooperative learning. For student choice, we are allowing our students now to choose the books that they want to read, the chapter books. We are kind of slowly drifting away from guided reading practices where we tell the readers what they're reading and allowing them to have the freedom to choose the books that they're interested in. For Love for Reading and Learning 4th grade level text, we're allowing students to fall in love with the process of reading and falling in love, especially for us in dual language reading in both languages. Gradual release of responsibility, me and my co-teacher allowed our students to create their own rubrics in order to reflect and go back to as they prepare and conduct their book clubs. And then our cooperative learning, we often ask our students, how are you working with your groups and your group roles? Do you like working with your groups? Do you like having book clubs in the classroom? And as you can see, we constantly have a positive result from that. We can play the video. I don't know how to play it from here. This is one of our students explaining why he enjoys book clubs.
I love my group roles because I know what my job is and I like to practice different skills each week.
So this will...
I love my group roles because I know what my job is and
This is a good segue into the next thing, journeying through text with peers. So our students then are having their own journey through reading and text and their peers in the classroom. There is increased participation across content areas. When we have these book clubs in our classrooms, we're also building a community that allows students to get to know each other and also increases learners being able to have meaningful conversations, which then transfers into whole group instruction. Our student ownership, learners are now taking on the responsibility of conducting their own book clubs without me or their teachers being next to them or telling them what to do. Again, it enhances their gradual release of responsibility, going back to the rubric, self-reflecting on how they did that day or what they can do better. And then we are also mastering multiple skills that are also in the integrated curriculum. We're allowing students to practice and explore these skills through their book roles, and we're also allowing them to choose the book roles that they want to practice on each cycle. So then it's not only student choice for the books, but the skills that they want to practice each cycle, and obviously we allow them to choose different ones, not repeatedly. These are just some examples from our book club journeys. These are the different roles that we allow the students to do. Some of them are in Spanish, sorry, but it's director of discussion, which allows one student to start the conversation, and then and the other side is the answers of the group, so they write the answers that the groups have talked about. Then we have Vivo Visualizer, which we allow those students to explore art and show off their art if they like to do so through scenes or different characters. Word Finder, which is about vocabulary, so students again are making cross cultural connections in dual language, and the Quote Analyzer, which allows students to analyze and be able to make self-to-text or text-to-text connections. And our next steps at Jackson Avenue, since this is fairly new to us, these are things that we would like for the future. Implement SEL and student reflections within book clubs, expand our library and classroom to make it more diverse and new interesting books, and then student presentations on their book clubs journeys. We would like for students to then present to the classroom about their book and how they conducted their own book clubs. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. So the middle school is really at a point where we've been going through this cycle of launching, managing, and journeying through our text, and we're at a point where we're really thinking about our next steps and the iteration of this process and how we can layer on to many of the things that you've already heard my colleagues mention today. So you're going to hear some similarities, but our lens is really about what are our next steps and how can we extend this work moving forward. So I mentioned at the last board meeting that I was at when we presented as a middle school staff, that we gave our students a book club survey at the end of last year, and that feedback from that survey is really driving what our next steps are in our iteration of our book clubs at the middle school. First and foremost, we kind of pulled out some trends from that survey, and the three biggest trends were around relatability, literacy skills, and SEL competencies, and structure and collaboration. So what do I mean when I say relatability? One of the questions the students had to answer was to what extent do they feel the books relate to the themes or relate to their own lives? And this became a focus area for our work this year, and we started addressing this and really taking on this next step. First and foremost, by implementing the books that students recommended to us from the book club survey into our choice book clubs for each unit, and that's a part of our book club catalog that's sent home to parents every unit. And so some of their own choices that they recommended that they feel related to the themes and the essential questions of the unit are now being incorporated into the book club choices. As Daniela mentioned, we also are implementing different roles, and you'll hear that throughout the middle school presentation, and we're really trying to be deliberate about making those roles intentional about asking kids to relate some of the themes and the characters and the struggles that they're learning about in the books to their own lives. So the connector has been evolved into making sure that that's a deliberate connection there. And then finally, we're starting to implement some book club choice projects in every unit where students have a choice in really reflecting their understanding of the themes of the books and relating that to their own lives through fun projects like creating movie trailers and Instagram pages and other different book club choice projects. Our work around literacy skills and SEL competencies, again, is something that we're really trying to be even more deliberate about this year. So as mentioned at Jackson, we too are embedding, and at the high school, we're embedding our focus standards for our unit in the structures that we are implementing in our book clubs. You'll see a couple of examples of that happening here, including across 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, students are in the dual language programs, and you'll hear more about that from Marlene Reyes about how these skills are being practiced both in English and Spanish on the both sides of the dual language program. And then again, in some of our roles and structures, we are deliberately connecting the skills of empathy and understanding others and agency as students are analyzing the characters and the themes in their text as well. And finally, in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, we're exploring with different book club structures as well. So we see this idea of the roles through reciprocal teaching. In 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, students are also developing book club journals where they're practicing some of these book club skills. And then in 7th grade, as a part of the 7th grade portfolios that we're developing this year, book club reflections and independent read reflections are being embedded in that portfolio as well. This is sort of an overall general look at how our next steps have been implemented through 5 through 7 at the middle school, but I want to pass it over to Ms. Reyes to give a little bit of a deeper dive into how this work has been extended really in a really exciting way in our SLA program.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so a focus in our SLA classroom is to cultivate a love for reading in Spanish. And to do that, we want our kids to see books as windows and mirrors. So by windows, I mean like provide them opportunities to learn about the perspective as well as experiences of others, while mirrors allows them to see themselves and their own experience in the story. With that in mind, we chose refugiado, as our textbook first unit to explore the unit, to explore the essential question, why is it important to learn other people's stories? So we set up to best showcase our skills as well as the structure for book clubs. I provided you with some examples of student work. So what students are doing in the classroom for SLA is they're reading a book independently, and then as they read, they track relevant evidence to explore their theme, their skill of theme, and helps them to analyze the important moments in the story. So as you can see, what we have allowed them to do is like their journal writing, and includes different components, like different elements for them to showcase what they consider as an important moment in the story. So they have the opportunity to draw an image that showcase that, as well as including direct quotes with analysis of what it means, and allows them to write any wonderings or questions, as well as connections. So connections to other texts, connections to society, connections to themselves. So as you can see, it definitely takes on a whole different level. Like they have that freedom to like how to showcase all these elements in their journal writing, as well as whether they want to do it manually or digitally. And the best part is that they're doing this in Spanish, so they're practicing their skills. So for our next steps in 7th grade SLA, it's really focused on goal setting. So a survey was given out to students to identify a goal they want to focus in SLA. And as you can see, I also asked them to like think about that goal and what category does it belong to, right? Like, so reading in Spanish, discussing in Spanish, or writing in Spanish. The majority really want to improve in the area of reading and discussing. So our next steps are driven by this data, and that is that we're going to have one-on-one conferences where I'll be able to like discuss with students, provide them feedback and how to track their goals, as well as their reflection. And as we also want to implement discussion protocols to support their participation in Spanish. So I will be looking into spiderweb discussion, and really like the focus is for it to be book clubs and discussion be driven by students rather than by like a teacher. And that's our goal, and we're looking forward to achieving that throughout this year.
Thank you, everybody.
Nicole, can you please touch on SLA and the relationship?
Sure. SLA is Spanish Language Arts, and that begins in 7th grade, and it rolls up into the high school, and we are doing the same practices that you hear Ms. Reyes speak about. In 7th grade, we are also doing those practices in SLA 1 and SLA 2 up at the high school, which will then lead us into advanced Spanish and then AP Spanish.
That's in addition to ELA period?
It's in addition to the ELA period. So they're really, our learners who are in the dual language program are really learning ELA, SLA, the skills around reading and writing, 2 periods a day.
And the children in an SLA class, are they only Spanish speakers?
No. They are representative of our dual language program, and our dual language program is a 50-50 model. So when we talk about the 50-50 model, we're not just talking about time distribution as far as language goes. 50% of your time is in Spanish, 50% of your time is in English. You're also talking about the demographics or the makeup of the classroom. So it should be representative of 50% English dominant, 50% Spanish dominant. Working collaboratively together, crossing lines of cultural differences, and learning about one another to make the world a better place.
Part of children getting biliteracy.
This is all a part of the journey. So Mrs. Rodriguez spoke about this as well in 3rd grade. So we're starting really in 2nd grade with this idea of the book clubs, the writing about the responses and the discussing around the book clubs in order to increase literacy across the board. But it's very important for our SLA because when you look at their overall day inside and outside of school is mostly more English than it is Spanish. We have much more opportunities to read in English. Our signage is in English, et cetera, et cetera. So for our teachers to be doing this work to this level, to this intensity, is really for the benefit of our learners to be able to grow their literacy skills in both languages simultaneously, which is a tremendous feat.
Because those literacy skills are
they're transferable. So once you're literate in one language, you're literate in another. You just need to build that language around that second or third language.
So they should be so strong by the time they're finished, and
Yes.
readers in any language. Yeah.
So our students are becoming more of like a simultaneous bilingual than a sequential bilingual, where when I went to high school, I would be considered more of a sequential bilingual, or my mother was a sequential bilingual. We learned English and then we learned Spanish. Whereas like our grandparents would have been more of simultaneous. Okay, so to summarize, there has been an overall process we have undergone, and it has been tremendous. There has been a lot of work. There was a pandemic in the middle of all of this. There was the rollout of the integrated curriculum, and there was a refinement of a curriculum up at the high school. So there's been a lot of work to have book clubs be a part of our curriculum and our daily practice, and all of the other things that book clubs bring with it: discussion, protocols, writing, etc. So we continue to embrace the following that you see up here. Student choice and that diversity of choice will not go away. That student choice is the most important aspect that we have, because that is what breeds that curiosity, which will lead to everything else. We are committed to a grade 2 through 11 implementation. We see that across the board, students are making connections with each other, they're making connections with books, and they're making connections with overall concepts and essential questions that go beyond teaching just one text. You also see that we're in a continual state of improvement and growth, be it our readers themselves or us as our program. So we're constantly assessing, reassessing, and iterating. One of us gets an idea, all of us hears about it, and then we all try to iterate and riff off of that idea. And ultimately, we're committed to creating a district of excited and impassioned readers, not just in English, but also in Spanish. So if you were to really look at our units of study from grades 5 through 11, and I'm only going to do 5 through 11 right now, we have 37 units of study that are thematic based, with 37 anchor texts, which means that our students have 37 additional opportunities to read at least another book, like, right, for each unit of study. Most of our students choose to read more than one, because they're so excited about the choice and they're so excited about the discussion that they're not just reading 2 books at a time. And to answer your question, Dr. Nagler, they're not forgetting the storyline, the plot lines, the characters, and all of those other elements that go into it. They are more than capable of handling more than 1 book at a time. So to that end, though, the goal is to become a reader and not simply teach or read a book. The goal is for us to build a reader identity and for all of our Mineola learners to love reading. So in the words of Maya Angelou, any book that helps a child to form a habit of reading, to make reading one of his deep and continuing needs, is good for him. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We are very proud of our work.
I think it's obvious you're proud of the work, so that's good. So I just want to give the board and the community a little glimpse of our teachers up here. Elise, you prefer seasoned or veteran? Which would you? Either way, interchangeable.
Seasoned veteran.
Ms. Bilberg's been teaching for many years and recently went to the high school and is starting this concept. We're trying to break the mold of the old English class and introduce the book clubs, and I really love the way you have that compromise of the structure of the week on how we can do anchor text and thematic. D-Rod is and Emily. They're both newbies. They haven't been teaching more than a few years each, and they dive into the deep end. They're both the Spanish side of our dual language program, one in 4th grade with Jackie Jahelka. And Melani's really a social studies certified person, so she's this is like branching all over the place. So we're taking our history in Spanish as well as the SLA and the humanities piece to it. So they really have morphed this idea into how to best fit the needs of our kids. And I knew what SLA was, if those of you didn't think I knew what it was. I was just prompting the question that in order to be literate in both languages, we have to have some emphasis on the literacy skills in both languages. So, this is such a remarkable progress in a very short period of time. And the middle school started it, so you see they're a little ahead, but the other buildings are moving rapidly because it works really well with the integrated curriculum, because it's thematic units there and the essential questions or thematic questions, if you will. So you really can get into deep conversations around these topics. And when you add the choice that they're picking, that's why they're reading more than one, because it's all the same topic. If you get a nice juicy topic that has high interest, they're gonna read and discuss and do all the things we want them to do. So fabulous, kudos. I don't want to forget Ms. Shanahan's back. We haven't seen her in a while. Always impressive, Ms. Shanahan, as you yes. Did you think I wasn't going to pick on you after our conversation this afternoon? And Mr. Vorak as well at the high school. Both their backgrounds lend to this work, lend to the helping craft this work. So great job, absolutely great job. I won't say anything about Dr. Moriarty, but
I will. Great job, Doctor.
There you go.
That was excellent.
Any questions from the board?
I'll let Morgan go first.
I was gonna let you guys go first.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
that's
you guys
nice.
go first.
Oh,
I'm a little bit
so I took some notes and I literally threw words, and student-centered stuck out. A lot of times when, well, not a lot, I guess most of the time when students are in school, it's expected that this is your curriculum and this is what you're going to do, right? And students are given a book and that's where they go with it, but our students are not. Our students are given choices. Our students are given surveys, fourth graders, middle schoolers, high schoolers, what is your choice of books? And then not only are they giving these surveys and then, the survey results come in and then it's just like, okay, we're going to do this anyway. They're taken into consideration, which is meaningful and powerful and useful. So thank you very much for making this about the students. Thank you.
It seems whenever I watch some of these presentations, I can't help but relate it like to my personal life and as my daughters were going through school. And some of the best memories I have with my girls is when they were younger and learning how to read. I got good advice when I was a young father, which is, you want to make sure your kids learn to read, and then they'll read to learn, right? I mean, we've all heard that a million times. And I liked it because it's very easy to remember. It's not super technical. It seems like common sense, but when you put the right book in the hands of a child, great things will happen. I wrote down just some phrases that came out during your presentation about making connections, reading in new places, student-created rubrics, meaningful conversations, building community, books as a window and mirrors. There's just so much good stuff just in those few words. And I think as Dr. Nagler mentioned, I mean that applies to so much more than just literacy or reading. So it's again, it's one of those things that's really fantastic by design. And Dr. Moriarty, I'm glad that you mentioned that this was all being done in the middle of a pandemic, because a lot of people would not have the ambition or the fortitude to move forward with something like this, and have a team willing to do that. So that makes it even more special, because I think the first quote on the first slide was, we read so that we know we're not alone, and I think, one is not more important than during a pandemic. So, great job.
I can just jump in about the reading in different places. I can also add, I drive a carpool every morning to the middle school of 4 children who are now, they used to be reluctant readers. I can speak for my 2. They were definitely reluctant readers, and now they are avid readers, and they talk about their books on the way to school. They read them in the car. They don't get car sick. They're so into this, and my daughter will physically make us take her to the bookstore every week to buy new books. I don't know why she doesn't like the library, but it costs us a fortune, this program. But they have become, she especially has become such an avid reader as a product of this program in the middle school for the last 3 years. So I also want to thank you for all your hard work, because I've never seen that transformation. Was beautiful.
So now I'm over being verklempt, but so many things jumped out at me. One was the whole notion of the windows and the mirrors, because that's exactly the questions I ask my students. Only I ask them also if it could be a doorway into some new way of living life as well. So to have kids looking at texts that way, I think is a wonderful way to get them started and getting them interested. I think if there were one thing I think I wish that schools could give children, and we are, is the love of reading. And so to have this become so central to our curriculum and to our integrated curriculum and so much effort going into it, I think we're giving our students one of the most important skills that they will take with them in life, to learn how to read, to enjoy reading, and to know how to analyze and critically think about what they're reading is, I think, a gift that will serve them and the rest of us very well in the future. So I want to thank you for that. The idea of choice, the Maya Angelou quote. Years ago, I remember having an argument with somebody that, well, it was my mother. And my brother was reading a book that I thought was like way too young for him, and she was like, look, he's reading, and I'm happy he's reading, leave him alone. I'm like, well, you know, you should be reading more serious books. And she's like, just leave him alone, because I was that older sister. And he ended up being an English teacher. So Mom giving him the choice of what mattered to him really mattered, and that has kind of stuck with me in life. And so the fact that we're doing that for our students, where so often curriculum is just bound to things you have to read because somebody else said you have to read them. So I love that. And then, of course, the Spanish language arts. Makes me so happy. Looking at those samples of the students, like I just want to say to everybody, sometimes, you know, when we think of dual language and we think of the English-speaking kids who are in it, maybe we think, well, how much Spanish are they, how good are they at their Spanish? That was really good Spanish up there. It was like so on grade level. It was just as rich as the English was. Like, I was so happy to see that. And because language skills are, you know, very fluid, that it's going to help them in either class as they move forward. So, and the fact that, you know, we go from pre-K now, dual language, all the way up to AP Spanish is just, I think, a tremendous asset for our students. So thank you all very, very much. And yes, Marlene is a great social studies teacher. I visited her last year in her Spanish social studies class, and it was a great lesson. So thank you all.
Thank you for coming out there. Very, very nice. Very good work. Ms. Trojanowski's in the audience also. I want to give you a shout out to her. Ms. Ficasio, Ms. Morrison are always here, so I'm not going to shout them out.
Oh, we should shout them out too.
Ms. Fuss goes around too. I don't want to say anything about her either. That concludes my report this evening.
Very well. Do we need executive session?
I am in need of executive session
May I have a motion?
to discuss negotiations.
Negotiations. May I have a motion?
I'll make that.
Okay, Catherine. Cheryl, will you second it? All in, oh, sorry, Linda?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. So we will be going to executive session, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Katie.
D-Rod's running her first marathon.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, the New York.
Oh, good luck. Which marathon?
Talking the car.